Zoe Johnson never imagined her life would change in a hotel lobby. At 29, with a linguistics degree in hand, she was scrubbing floors while her dreams gathered dust. But one phone call, a quiet, forbidden moment, would shatter the glass ceiling she had been trapped under for 6 years. And it all started when she answered in Dutch. You won't believe what happened next. Hit subscribe to follow Zoe's journey from invisible maid to unstoppable force. Zoe stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. The elegant lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel, with its polished marble floors and gleaming chandeliers, had always felt like a world apart, a world she could only dream of. As she carefully swiped the mop across the floor, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the years of work that seemed to be fading into nothing. Her degree, her dreams, all forgotten. To everyone here, she was just another maid. Invisible, unimportant. The phone's sudden ring shattered the quiet rhythm of her cleaning. It wasn't supposed to be happening. No personal calls during working hours. The rule always echoed in her head, a rule drilled into her by Manager Richards. She hesitated. She had learned the hard way that bending the rules could cost her more than just a warning. But something inside her stirred. A spark of hope, the kind she hadn't felt in years. She saw the name on the screen. The University of Amsterdam. Could it be? She had applied for the linguistics master's program 6 times, each rejection cutting deeper than the last. This was her 7th attempt, and after months of silence, she couldn't ignore it. This was her chance. She glanced nervously around the room. No one was watching, or so she thought. She moved behind one of the ornate marble columns in the lobby, her fingers trembling as she answered. Zoe Johnson, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The voice on the other end was smooth, professional. Miss Johnson, this is Professor Van Hachton from the University of Amsterdam. I'm calling about your application. We have a few questions regarding your letter of motivation. Zoe's breath caught in her throat. This is it. She was speaking to one of the top professors in her field, and there was no way she was going to mess this up. Without missing a beat, she switched to fluent Dutch, answering his questions with confidence, feeling a rush of pride as her words flowed effortlessly. For the first time in years, she felt in control, not just of her words, but of her future. But then as she listened to Professor Van Hachton's words, something shifted. There was an odd silence, the kind that makes you look around like you've been caught in something you weren't supposed to be doing. Zoe turned her head slightly, and that's when she saw him, Richard Coleman, the billionaire owner of the hotel chain. He was standing just a few feet away, his sharp eyes fixed on her. His presence was commanding, as if the entire room shifted when he entered. Zoe froze. Her heart raced, her stomach dropped. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She quickly finished the call, her words stumbling over each other. I'll call you back later, Professor. Thank you, she muttered, hanging up. The phone slipped. From her hand, her body tense with anxiety. Zoe Johnson in my office. Now. Manager Richard's voice pierced through the air, cold and sharp. Zoe's legs felt like lead as she walked toward the office. This is it. She knew what was coming. Richards didn't need to say another word. She could feel the heat of her boss's glare from behind her. The other employees in the hallway watched her with curious eyes, some pitying, others smirking. They probably think she's done for. Her mind raced as she entered the small, sterile office. The door closed behind her with a soft thud, and the silence seemed to suffocate her. She stood there, heart pounding, waiting for the inevitable. Richards paced in front of her, the disapproving frown etched on her face. You know the rules, Johnson. No phones during work hours, especially in public areas. Richards' voice was dripping with disdain. And speaking in what was that, Dutch? Zoe opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She had never been able to articulate what it felt like to be trapped in this role, to know she was so much more than what they saw. She was a linguist, a scholar, and yet here she was scrubbing floors like she didn't matter. I don't care if it was French, Dutch, Martian, whatever. Richard snapped. The point is, you embarrassed the hotel in front of Mr. Coleman, and for that you'll be reassigned. Zoe clenched her fists. This wasn't fair. It wasn't right. But she held her tongue. She had learned over the years that speaking up only made things worse. I'm putting you on bathroom duty at the convention center for the next 3 months. Maybe there you can practice as many languages as you want without embarrassing this hotel. Richard sneered. Zoe's stomach churned. Not the convention center. It meant double shifts after corporate events, no overtime pay and no recognition. Just more of the same. The system that kept her down. With one final sneer, Richards dismissed her. Zoe didn't say a word as she walked, out her head spinning. The sting of the punishment felt like acid on her skin, but it wasn't the worst of it. The worst was the nagging feeling that had haunted her for years. No one, not even the people who were supposed to support her, ever truly saw her. She closed her eyes for a moment, standing in the hallway. She had to fight. She had to keep going. No matter how many doors were slammed in her face, no matter how many times she was made to feel invisible, she would never stop fighting for her future. The thought echoed in her mind, louder now than ever before. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, Zoe arrived at work early, determined to show that she would not let the previous day's humiliation break her. As she stood in front of the Grand Plaza Hotel, the cold morning air seemed to match the weight in her chest. She took a deep breath, telling herself that today was just another day, another chance to prove herself. But as she walked through the hotel's grand entrance, the stares of her colleagues felt heavier than usual. They knew what had happened. They had seen her called into Richard's office the day before. Zoe tried to ignore the whispers, but they followed her like shadows. Her co-workers, who had been distant for so long, were now acting like they were part of the drama. Some were sympathetic, but others, especially the women, couldn't hide their satisfaction. Zoe had always been the outsider, the only black woman in the cleaning department, the one with a degree, the one who was constantly reminded that her place was beneath the others. She had never fully fit in. She shoved her cleaning supplies into the storage closet and began her duties with mechanical precision. But as she bent down to wipe the floor, she felt a sudden pang in her chest. Is this all I'll ever be? The thought clung to her like the dust she was always cleaning up. Will I spend the rest of my life scrubbing floors, while my potential is wasted? But then, a familiar voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. Zoe, you good? The voice was soft but filled with concern. She looked up to see Maria, her neighbor from the small apartment she shared with 2 other nurses. Maria had become a quiet source of support for Zoe over the years, even if it was just through small, thoughtful gestures. She was the only person Zoe ever confided in, the only one who truly saw her for more than just the hotel maid. Zoe forced a smile. Yeah, just another day, she replied, but the words didn't sound convincing even to her own ears. Maria leaned against the doorway, her face etched with concern. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was like family to Zoe. They had spent countless evenings together, laughing, talking about their dreams, about their struggles. Maria knew how much Zoe hated her job, how much she longed for something more. But today, there was something different in Maria's eyes, something that made Zoe pause. I heard what happened yesterday, Maria said quietly, glancing over her shoulder to make sure no one else was nearby. I saw you leave the office looking like you'd just been crushed. Zoe let out a shaky breath. It's not fair, Maria. I've been working here for 6 years, cleaning these damn floors while everyone else gets a chance to move up. And now, Richards has punished me. Bathroom duty for 3 months, maybe more. I don't know how much longer I can take it. Maria took a step forward, her voice low but firm. Zoe, you've got to fight back. You're so much more than this. You've always been more, and everyone here knows it even if they won't say it. Zoe shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. What good is fighting back, Maria? I've tried for years. I sent out 47 resumes. I applied for internal transfers. I've done everything I can, but all I've gotten is rejection. My resume is just another piece of paper to them. Maria took a deep breath, her hand resting on Zoe's shoulder. You think I don't see how hard you're working? How much you've sacrificed? I see it. But you have to know that sometimes change doesn't come from playing by the rules. It comes from doing the things they tell you not to do. It comes from breaking the barriers they set up to keep you down. Zoe's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? Maria met her gaze with a level of seriousness that made Zoe's heart race. I'm saying you've got an opportunity here. Richards might have put you down, but I saw how you handled that phone call yesterday. You were calm. You were professional. And that wasn't just any phone call. That was the university. Don't let that moment pass you by. You're bigger than this hotel, Zoe. Don't let them keep you trapped. Zoe stood still, the weight of Maria's words sinking in. Her mind replayed the image of Richard Coleman standing in the lobby, watching her as she spoke Dutch, his eyes filled with shock and curiosity. It was the first time in years that someone had truly noticed her. And for the first time, Zoe began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, Maria was right. Maybe it was time to stop playing by their rules. The sound of her phone vibrating on the table pulled her back to reality. She looked down to see a new message from an unknown number. Zoe's pulse quickened as she read the message. Mr. Coleman, would like to speak with you. Please meet me in HR at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Her breath caught in her throat. Could it be happening? Was this a chance to finally prove herself? Or was it just another part of the system trying to keep her in her place? Maria, sensing the change in Zoe's demeanor, gave her a reassuring smile. Whatever happens tomorrow, Zoe, remember this. They can try to shut you down, but they can't take away your worth. You're not invisible, no matter how hard they try to make you feel that way. As Maria walked away, Zoe stood there, her heart racing. The possibility of a new beginning was just a breath away, and this time, she wouldn't be silenced. Tomorrow would be the day everything changed. This part of the story introduces Maria, Zoe's supportive neighbor, who serves as a reminder of Zoe's potential and worth. Maria's perspective deepens the emotional stakes, encouraging Zoe to break free from the cycle of rejection and discrimination. The increasing tension, combined with Zoe's quiet hope, propels the narrative forward, leaving the audience eager to see what happens next. The next day, Zoe arrived at the hotel early, as she had done countless times before. But this day felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, something she couldn't quite place. Her pulse raced, and she couldn't shake the feeling that today was going to be a turning point, though she wasn't sure for better or worse. The message from Mr. Coleman had been clear, though cryptic. Please meet me in HR at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Zoe didn't know what to expect, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. As she stepped into the lobby, she tried to keep her head down, focusing on her work. The usual hum of the hotel's morning rush was already in full swing. Guests checked in and out, bellhops rushed to deliver luggage, and the staff moved like clockwork. Zoe had always felt like a cog in that machine, but today, she felt more like an outsider. Zoe! A voice cut through her thoughts. She turned to find Manager Richards walking briskly toward her, her eyes cold and unfocused. The woman had always made her feel small, insignificant, like Zoe's every mistake was, a reflection of her character. Yes, Richards? Zoe asked, her tone deliberately neutral. I need you to clean the convention center bathrooms right away. Richards snapped, her voice sharp, as though Zoe hadn't already been assigned this punishment for the next 3 months. Zoe didn't respond. She simply nodded, the bitterness rising in her chest. The punishment still stung. But what really stung more was the fact that no one had ever believed in her potential. Everyone around her seemed to be convinced that her dreams were nothing more than fantasies. She walked toward the back, her thoughts swirling. It wasn't long before she found herself standing outside the HR office, unsure of what to expect. Her heart raced, and her palms were slick with sweat. This was it. She was about to face Richard Coleman, the man who owned the very building she had cleaned for 6 years, the man who had noticed her in the lobby the day before, and who had now called her to meet him. Why? Zoe didn't know, but the sense of urgency clawed at her. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the HR office door and walked inside. The room was stark and sterile, the furniture polished and pristine, unlike the mess she had dealt with on the convention floor. There, behind a large desk, sat Richard Coleman. His piercing eyes met hers immediately, and she felt her body tense under his gaze. "Miss Johnson?" He began, his tone cool but with an underlying current of something she couldn't quite read. "Please have a seat." Zoe sat down, careful not to appear too eager. She needed to maintain her composure, no matter how much her nerves screamed for her to run. Coleman's office was imposing. The walls were lined with shelves of books, and the polished wood desk looked like something out of a high-powered corporate boardroom. Zoe felt small in the chair, but she refused to let that intimidate her. "I assume you know why I asked you here," he said after a moment, glancing down at a folder in front of him. Zoe swallowed. "I think so," she said cautiously, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. She knew the hotel had always been strict about employees talking on the phone during work hours, but her encounter with Coleman the day before felt like it had shaken something within him, something that had until then been completely unaware of her existence. He leaned back in his chair, looking at her closely. "You've been here for 6 years, Zoe. I've read your file. I know about your degree in linguistics from Georgetown. I know you speak 6 languages fluently, including Dutch. And yet, here you are, cleaning floors and bathrooms. Tell me, why is that?" Zoe blinked, stunned. It was as if everything she had ever worked for, everything she had tried to keep hidden, was laid bare in front of him. She had never expected anyone to look closely enough to notice. She had grown used to being invisible. "Well, I've tried, Mr. Coleman," she said, her voice growing softer. "I've applied for every transfer. I've sent in countless resumes, but no one's ever even given me a chance." She paused, gathering her courage. "I've spent 6 years here doing everything I'm told, trying to climb up, trying to show that I'm capable of more. But the system here doesn't allow for people like me to rise." There, it was out. The word she had kept locked inside for so long. Zoe hadn't planned to say so much, but once she started, it all came flooding out. The frustration, the years of rejection, the suffocating weight of it all. Coleman's expression softened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. He simply listened, his gaze unwavering. "I've watched so many others with less experience or qualifications get ahead while I've been stuck here," Zoe continued, her voice rising, the anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. "I've been passed over for promotions, ignored in favor of people who don't even care about this place the way I do. And no one has ever noticed me." For a brief moment, the silence between them felt thick and heavy. Zoe could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Then Coleman spoke, his voice calm but with an edge that caught her off guard. "I see. You've been overlooked, but you're not the only one." He paused, and Zoe could feel the weight of his next words. "I've been watching this hotel, and I know exactly what's been going on. There's been a systematic issue here, a pattern of discrimination that I've only recently become aware of. And it needs to stop." Zoe's breath caught in her throat. What was he saying? Did he know what had been happening all these years? Coleman leaned forward slightly, his expression more intense now. "You're not just a cleaning lady, Zoe. You're far more than that, and I plan on making sure you're given the opportunity you deserve." Zoe blinked, unable to believe what she was hearing. Was this some kind of joke? Could this be real? She had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was happening, she wasn't sure how to react. Could she really trust him? Coleman smiled briefly, almost as though he could read her thoughts. "I've already spoken to HR. Tomorrow you will be reassigned. Not to clean, but to help with a high-level international conference. You'll be in charge of all the translations, and I expect you to use your talents to their fullest. Your salary will be adjusted accordingly. You're making $5,000 a week starting tomorrow." Zoe's mind was racing. She couldn't breathe. The words felt like they were sinking in slow motion. $5,000 a week, the salary she'd dreamed of for so long. But it wasn't just the money. It was the chance to prove she was more than just a maid. Why me? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Because I know your worth, Zoe, Coleman replied. And I'm done letting people like you be invisible. You've been ignored for far too long. Zoe sat there, her mind whirling. Could this be her chance to escape the cycle of rejection? Could she finally take control of her future? She wasn't sure, but she wasn't going to let fear stop her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe. Tomorrow, everything would change. The days that followed felt like a blur to Zoe. What started as a quiet, suppressed existence had exploded into an unexpected whirlwind of opportunities and change. The international conference, which she had initially feared would be yet another task stacked against her, had instead become the stage for her professional rebirth. Zoe spent the next week immersed in the conference's preparations, applying every ounce of knowledge and expertise she had spent years developing, but had never been allowed to use. She meticulously reviewed every translation, double-checked cultural nuances, and corrected mistakes that others would have overlooked. As she worked, she saw the respect she had always longed for begin to grow from the people around her. Business executives, who once barely acknowledged her existence, now sought her advice on the most trivial of things, and the staff who had once whispered about her now watched her with admiration. At the heart of it all was Richard Coleman. He had given her a chance to prove herself, yes, but more than that, a chance to redefine who she was. What had once felt like a single, fleeting moment of justice had become the catalyst for her transformation. Coleman didn't just see her as a maid or a cleaning lady. He saw her for the brilliant, driven woman she was. He wasn't the typical billionaire hotel owner who brushed aside the lives of those beneath him. He was different. He believed in giving people a chance, no matter their background, no matter how invisible they may seem. Zoe's work during the conference didn't just go noticed by the guests or the executives. It shook the very foundations of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Word spread quickly that the woman who had once scrubbed floors now facilitated international business deals with ease. Her ability to switch seamlessly between languages and navigate complex cultural expectations left a lasting impression on everyone, including the very people who had once dismissed her as just another hotel employee. By the end of the event, Coleman invited Zoe into his office once again. This time, it was different. She wasn't sitting there nervously, unsure of her worth. She walked in with confidence, her posture straight, her gaze unwavering. She had earned her place in that room. "Zoe," he began, his voice calm but with a hint of pride. "I hope you realize that you've not only saved this conference but also helped us avoid a diplomatic crisis. More than that, you've shown us all what true talent looks like. I can't ignore that anymore." Zoe smiled, but it wasn't a smile of relief or exhaustion. It was the smile of someone who knew she had earned everything that had come her way. "Thank you," she replied simply. "I've been waiting for someone to see me for who I really am. It's been a long time coming." Coleman nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "I've been wrong, Zoe, and I've been too blind to see the talents we've been overlooking in this hotel chain. But that changes now." Zoe's heart skipped a beat when he spoke the next words. "Effective immediately, I'm offering you a permanent position as our international relations coordinator. We're going to expand our multilingual programs, and I want you to lead it. You'll be in charge of ensuring that our global events run smoothly, and you'll have full oversight on hiring and training new staff. Your salary will be adjusted accordingly." Zoe couldn't believe it. She had just gone from cleaning hotel rooms to being at the helm of international operations. It was more than just a promotion. It was the recognition she had been fighting for all her life. But it wasn't just about the role, the title, or the money. What truly mattered was the fact that Zoe was no longer invisible. She had fought for her place in this world, and now she had it. She would never again let anyone tell her she wasn't good enough, that she didn't belong. She had found her voice, and nothing was going to silence her again. As Zoe walked out of Coleman's office, a sense of peace washed over her. It wasn't just a victory for her career, it was a victory for every single person who had ever felt overlooked, underappreciated, or invisible. Zoe wasn't just breaking through her own glass ceiling, she was helping others do the same. The conference room was buzzing with energy as she walked back to her new office. The staff looked up at her with respect, some even smiling, offering congratulations. Her colleagues, who had once ignored her and made her feel small, now saw her as someone they could learn from. They saw her as a leader, and for the first time, Zoe could see them as equals too. That evening, Zoe went home to her small apartment, her heart full. She couldn't wait to tell Maria, her closest friend, who had always believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. Maria had been her rock, the one who had pushed her to fight back. The phone rang and Zoe's voice broke as she spoke. "I did it, Maria. I finally did it. I'm not just cleaning anymore. I've got a job that matters, a job where I can make a difference." Maria's voice on the other end was filled with joy and pride. "I knew you would. I always knew you had it in you." Zoe took a deep breath, holding the phone in one hand and a picture of her mother in the other. She could almost hear her mother's voice as if she were standing beside her. "I did it, Mom. I finally did it. I'm living the life you always dreamed for me." Zoe's mother had always told her that despite the world's challenges, her worth wasn't defined by what others saw. She had always believed in Zoe's potential, and now Zoe was proving that belief true. She wasn't just a cleaning lady, and she wasn't going to let anyone ever make her feel that way again. As the sun set behind the skyline of the city, Zoe smiled, knowing this was only the beginning. She had come a long way, but there was still so much to do. She was ready. The doors had finally opened, and now she was going to make sure that they stayed open for everyone else who deserved a chance. In the end, Zoe's story wasn't just about overcoming obstacles. It was about ensuring that no one else had to face the same invisible barriers she had. It was about breaking down the walls that kept extraordinary talent hidden, and ensuring that everyone, no matter their background, had the opportunity to shine. The rise of Zoe Johnson wasn't just a personal victory. It was a revolution in a world that had long been blind to the potential of those who were overlooked. And Zoe, the woman who once cleaned the floors of the Grand Plaza Hotel, was now at the heart of that change.